DW Africa Link.
Government borrowing is normal in modern economies, but the key issue is sustainability and accountability. Nigeria's borrowing has become problematic.
Borrowing itself is not bad if the funds are properly used to improve the economy and people's lives.
Nigeria continues to borrow, yet many citizens feel there's little to show for it. Each time the government seeks new loans, public frustration grows. The latest plan to secure a $1.2 billion loan from the World Bank has sparked renewed outrage and criticism. Today we are shining a spotlight on Nigeria's borrowing, examining its impact on the country's economy, and exploring whether ordinary citizens truly benefit. This is Africa Link, the podcast that connects you to the stories that matter across Africa. I am Ajua Tinkrama Domina, your host for today.
Africa Link, every weekday here on DW.
According to Nigeria's Debt Management Office, the country's total external debt stood at approximately $51.8 billion as of December 2025. Despite this, Nigeria continues to pursue additional external financing, including recent discussions for a $1.25 billion loan. This new facility, titled Nigeria Actions for Investment and Jobs Acceleration, is expected to be presented for approval on June 26, 2026. If approved, it will become the second largest single World Bank loan secured under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The central question for many Nigerians remains, after years of borrowing, what tangible changes have occurred? That's our focus today. We'll also consider how Nigeria and other African nations might finance development without excessive dependence on external sources. Well, joining me now for this discussion is Ene Obi. She is Executive Director of the Ene Obi Center for Development and a former Country Director for Action Aid Nigeria. We also have DW's Ben Adam Sherman joining us from Abuja. Welcome to you both.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Ben, why is this loan request causing so much stir in the public in Nigeria?
One, the IMF itself, at the point one Nigeria said they were reaching the red line in terms of borrowing, and that the country will not therefore be at its best if borrowing is the source of income or money to run the country. That is one. On the other side, when IMF gave this loan, this warning, and Nigerians also felt, look, there have always been loans being received here and there. Where is it being used? So they want it. They want government to rather show, either through the National Assembly by way of oversight function, where are these loans that have been received? Where are they being implemented? Where are the projects? Like I usually have this expression. People talk of earmark, you hear it, but the Nigerians will talk of eye mark. They want to see. If they see, they believe. So that is why people are feeling all these loans. What has changed when it comes to the living standard of Nigerians?
And let me come to you now. This new $1.25 billion loan that Nigeria is taking from the World Bank, we understand it is to go towards, investment and jobs acceleration. As a governance analyst, if you look at the terrain for all these years, does Nigeria use the borrowed monies for the things they have promised to use it for?
Thank you very much for having me and for these questions and for wanting us to discuss Nigeria. I think what has worried many Nigerians is not just the borrowing, but what are you borrowing for? What are you investing in? Are you investing in the human capital? Are you investing in the welfare of the people? What are you really doing? What are you borrowing for? And the World Bank, okay, let's take it that in terms of borrowing, within 1 year of the current administration, he borrowed about 17 trillion the first year from 2023 after the general election to 2024. And so he borrowed, and that amount is more than the 16 trillion which was borrowed by Buhari in his 8 years. That for us was a cause for alarm. Then you had the devaluation of the Naira. When, in 2023, before the general election, what we were owing was 49.85 trillion in terms of our debt profile. And then, but within a very short period of time, we were owing 134 trillion. This was in 2004, just getting almost immediately, within a very short space of time. And this is the Debt Management Office record. The World Bank provides that your threshold in terms of debt servicing should be about 22.5%. They allowed Nigeria, and I want to just pull out something in terms of the debt that was paid by President Obasanjo. If you look at what he did, Obasanjo was a military head of state in Nigeria. And so he borrowed 4 billion in 1978. By 2005 or 2006, the debt, he tried to, okay, let me step back a little to say 2003, he paid back about 16 billion. And then in 2006, we were still owing 32 billion. When he said he paid, so they tried to negotiate, and that was when the Nigerian government and many other African countries were moving together and say, we don't owe, what we don't owe, we don't pay. And so at that point, what did he borrow? $4 billion. But at the end of the day, they held him and they cornered him in a meeting, and he paid back $12 billion and bought back a bond of $4 billion. And then they said, okay, the remaining money, we are actually forgiving you the rest of the money, but you have to open your books for us. All the ministries were open to IMF and the World Bank to come and sit down. That was the SDG, that was implemented. The money was within the country, and they had to control the spending within the country. That's the SDG fund. I just want to bring us back to the fact that borrowing is evil if what you borrowed it for, what we even borrowed that 4 billion for, we don't understand. So I just want to take you through some genesis that the money that was paid back by Obasanjo was not the new money he borrowed during his time. It was money that was being owed before.
The point you're making is quite important. I just want to ask, I've heard some economists say that it's not so much about borrowing, but it's about the country's ability to be sustainable in the debt management. Do you think that Nigeria is debt sustainable?
At the moment, it's not debt sustainable because you can't have ruthless leaders coming on board and just borrowing things. And Obasanjo was not clear of debt because during Buhari administration already we were in debt. You know the extent which Ben just mentioned as well. And so we cannot say we were cleared of debt at any time. Nigeria is not sustainable in terms of the kind of borrowing we're just indebting, generations to come. And like I said, it's like, if you see people that don't have the capacity for more money, why are you giving it to them? Is it because you know that they have the capacity to pay you back? Or are you indebting the future of so many generations to come?
But don't you think the World Bank will have some metrics to assess whether this country we're giving the loans to has the ability to repay before they give the loans?
There was a time that the World Bank, people were not borrowing from the World Bank, and they had some strategies They knew the countries that have the capacity. You know the countries with resources. So you go and sit down and you are giving money to, governments that may not even need it. You see the red light, the cost of governance in Nigeria is something else, but they are still borrowing, they are still buying private jets and so on and so forth. And you see giving them, because you say they are stupid, let them borrow, they will have to pay back, and they are sustaining the bank. So I think we need to, it may say that it's not about borrowing. What are you borrowing for? What did you do with the money? What have you done with the money? What are you doing with the money now? And there is a huge corruption in Nigeria.
Ben, let me return to you at this point. When you speak to Nigerians, the government has said that this particular $1.25 billion loan facility is to create jobs. But do Nigerians believe in that?
Let me tell you, right now, it is hard, very hard. The proverbial saying that it's easy for a camel to pass through the eye of the needle than getting some jobs in Nigeria. You see, year in, year out, there are graduates from the universities, polytechnics, colleges of education, secondary school, but where are the jobs? You begin to churn out applicants into the market, and some even in terms of employability, some are not even employable. Some are capable of working, but they don't have the job. So when government says, okay, they're going to ensure that there is employment, we begin to ask, where is the electricity that will make companies work? When companies work, you just know that, yes, people will be employed, And you're also talking of a situation where agriculture that would have absorbed so many people, virtually many farmlands have been turned into either banditry activities or Boko Haram terrorism here and there. People go to farm, they get kidnapped. And incidentally, the little crops you have, you also sell to pay for ransom. So it's a whole gamut of problems that Nigerian government will have to resolve. At the point they say, okay, they're collecting in order to revamp or change the Nigerian educational sector to make it a more a kind of in tandem with realities of the world. We are students, as soon as they come out from universities, they should be able to employ themselves by creating jobs and not really waiting for government. Then you look at the investment climate. There are laws that are so aggressive, they send away investors here and there. And so that's why Nigerians at the point are becoming a bit skeptical when government says they will do this. Government is always that of the future. They will do. Instead of saying we are doing this and Nigerians will see and believe.
Interesting. And let's talk about something that you are passionate about. Earlier you were making the point about why institutions like the World Bank or maybe the IMF will not assess a country's repayment capacity before they even give them loans. What are the risks that come with a country like Nigeria relying heavily on institutions like the World Bank and the IMF?
I think it is really sad because I think they know what they're doing. They know Nigeria has a huge capacity, and that's why they're doing it, because it doesn't add up that at this time, we are over 60% in terms of the debt to GDP ratio, debt servicing, and you are aware of that. So they will assess. There was a time they were giving a loan, one particular loan in, I think it was like $5 million, they were giving in 2022. And when they told us they were going to give Nigeria that loan, I said, what are you giving it for? They said it was for the electricity. This was when they were trying to do the tariff, change the tariff issue. So why are you giving? Because Nigeria has privatized its electricity. And so why are you giving the loan to the Nigerian government? They cannot pay. What is it for? And they said they were still going to give them. We try to, from the civil society perspective, we said, don't give the loan because Nigerian government has said they're handing off in terms of who supplies and all of that. But at the end of the day, we found out that, they still gave them the loan. And so I was left confused. So what are we really doing with the loans that we're giving them when it is not tied to anything in particular. And so those are my worries. And I do think that they did assessment, they're doing assessment, and they are further mortgaging the lives of Nigeria. So they're impoverishing the people because life is getting more difficult every day. The administration, turned off in terms of the subsidy that they're talking about. Up to now, we don't know where the money has gone. Accountability is really difficult.
Will it be justifiable if you actually see the investment coming from these loans that the government keeps borrowing? Would the borrowing be justifiable then?
The borrowing will be justified when you are taking that money and investing it in something that will bring you money. I mean, we need to personalize issues of borrowing. It's like you going to borrow from somebody and you are sinking it. You won't sleep at night because a borrower will come. But when you are taking that loan on behalf of the people and you think you don't, and then the World Bank bringing new rules of 10-year moratorium, what that means with the governance perspective is that with the 10-year moratorium, any government in Nigeria would have come and gone because they only can lead for 8 years, 4 years, and then renewable another 4 years if people vote for you. And then you leave. So you are not bothered. So the government after government, turn this around because they feel they can borrow and nobody will hold them responsible.
Let's talk about politics now. We know election is around the corner. And in fact, some of the comments I saw on social media was to the effect that the World Bank shouldn't give this loan to Nigeria because they're going to use it for election campaigns and all of that. How much skepticism is currently in Nigeria when it comes to officials borrowing and using the money to benefit themselves rather than the people?
I think we need to look at accountability. Does the World Bank want you to get it right? Because they are borrowing to Africa. You remember that the structural adjustment program destroyed African countries, including Nigeria. And now they are borrowing again. They confess that the structures, the economic policies did not work for Africa. But we cried about it. We fought against it. As students, we were on the street because of it. And it never worked. And so what are we doing today that is different? We are not targeting, so many of the borrowing has led to more sweat and more suffering for the citizens. Is it for the citizens or is it for the bank? At this point, if they bring out the money, I think, they do know. There's an argument that is going on now, which Shem is aware about the federation accounts, that all the governors came together and they are putting a percentage from their federation account, the money that is coming from the federation account into banks. The cookie crumbled when somebody was trying to take the money. And now they are holding the person. And that's when Nigerians got to know that actually the money that is supposed to go to working with people at the local level is being thrown into a campaign account for the ruling party. We saw that when it came out. So I believe bringing the money now, a lot of it, they know where it will go.
I see you're quite passionate about placing the responsibility on the institutions that give the money, but how about responsibility of African governments, Nigeria included, to find other financing options instead of always going out to borrow and burdening its citizens? I'll come back to you to take that for me. But Ben, Nigeria is in the political season. Politically, do you think this economic hardship that you paint will become a challenge for the APC government in retaining power?
When it comes to politics and 2027, then the Nigerian money, of course, Nigerians do question. Now, when you're talking about the 2026 budget, that is that budget of consolidation, renewable resilience, and shared prosperity. You see, and that it is anchored on realism and prudence. Where is the budget discipline that we have? Is not implemented in Nigeria. You just see the figures. Now, defense, just say, even when you said you are even borrowing to fight terrorism. The ministry will tell you the budget performance of last year was about 30, 35 or highest 40% for a country that is fighting insurgency. Also, when you're talking about allocation, budget allocation for sectoral allocations, you just see that you see figures so attached, but in reality, how much do they receive? Also, Nigerians are worried and are saying that it's always a kind of a wash matter. It's a situation that one can describe as fetching water in a basket. And that is what the Nigerian government is saying. You collect loans, we don't see them, and you begin to tell us, oh, there is a Lagos-Calabar highway, there is also the railway. We've been hearing railway since the PTB days. Up to now, how many kilometers of railway have we had? We've been hearing about airport remodeling. What is happening with that sector? So quite a lot of gaps that need to be to be filled, and that's why the IMF will say also think of other sources to finance your budget. You can think inwards. Look at the gross domestic product in Nigeria. Where are the things that Nigerians are creating in this country? Are we importing more or exporting more? So we import more. There's no way an economy that is import dependent that will be so good for the country.
Well, you actually mentioned a few pointers from what I was expecting from Ene, but let me go to Ene now as we wrap up. Ene, how does Nigeria and to a large extent African countries reduce their reliance on borrowing from external sources?
They need to look inward. There is a lot that they can do with themselves. You cannot be importing without exporting. If you look at our fuel, the fuel issue, petroleum, we have the crude, we were taking it out and then going to refine outside. When we have four giant refineries, we had refineries. So how did they go into the oblivion? Up till now, they are not functioning, though they are funding them, but they are not functioning. Why is it not funding? The issues of corruption, and they are spending a lot of money there. Now we have a Dangote refinery. Okay, if you look at the refineries now, you say you are taking fuel, the crude from here and producing it in Nigeria, and then we are not getting the fuel cheaper. Who is holding fuel? It's a state capture. So what is going on? And so we need to look at alternatives. And then corruption. There are so many leaders, like the government, the governors, for example, who are in the Senate and also in the House of Assembly. Many of them have looted the treasury of Nigeria. No sanctions are being given, and so even recovering the money of Nigeria for Nigerians was an issue. There was a $62 billion that was held up outside. They found all the documents and everything and gave it to Buhari. Is like he told the EFCC then, who sent you? And things like that. So what we are saying is that our country is rich enough to be able to generate income from within. And we have the population to also consume, and we can sell. And so there is a lot. We are also blessed by, our population, the human capital, both, skilled and unskilled labor. Population is a blessing. So if you make use of the population, I can tell you that the sky will be the limit. So let's look for alternative. They don't have to borrow more money.
They certainly don't have to borrow more money. Thank you so much. You just heard Ene Obi. She's Executive Director at Ene Obi Center for Development. She's also the former Country Director for Action Aid Nigeria. And earlier you heard Ben Adam Sherman, DW correspondent in Abuja, Nigeria. Thank you both for your time.
Thank you for having us.
With just 6 months remaining until Nigeria's January 16, 2027 elections, skepticism persists regarding the government's borrowing habits and whether these funds will genuinely create jobs, boost investment, and accelerate development, or simply be diverted into financing election campaigns. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic, so share them with us on Facebook and on TikTok at DW Africa. Listen to us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. And don't forget to subscribe to our DW Africa YouTube channel. This show was co-produced and edited by Isaac Mugabe. I am Achua Tinkrama Domina. Bye for now.
DW. Made for minds.